Can Caravan, written by Richard O'Neill and illustrated by Cindy Kang. Janey was always drawing. She had a great imagination and turned everyday objects into wonderful creations. Her favourite things to sketch were caravans. She imagined the trailer she wanted to live in when she was older and often made models of her drawings. Grandad liked helping with the painting. Janey was proud of her designs and loved showing her work to Mrs. Tolan, her granddad's oldest friend. "You're a chavvy after my own heart, Janey," said Mrs. Tolan. "This is a photo of me back when I was training as an engineer. Look at my old lathe." "I think Dad had one of those in his workshop," remembered Janey. "If he was still around, I could have borrowed it to fix up this old caravan," said Mrs. Tolan, smiling sadly. At school, Jamie's teacher announced that he'd organised a trip to a can recycling plant. "Does anyone know the history of recycling?" Mr. Green asked. Janey's hand shot up. "Travellers have been recycling for centuries. My granddad told me that his mum collected aluminium pans during the war. The factories needed the metal to make planes." Janey couldn't wait to tell Mrs. Tolan, but her caravan was empty. Mum was outside tending to her plants. "Have you seen Mrs. Tolan?" asked Janey. "I can't find her." "She's broken her hip and had to go to the hospital," said Mum. "Don't worry though, she'll be okay." A couple of days later, Janey visited the hospital and took in some official-looking letters. "Now what's this all about?" Mrs. Tolan wondered. "Oh, it's environmental health. They say my caravan's not safe. And this one's from social care. They need to do an assessment so they can find me somewhere else to live." "We can help restore your caravan," suggested Janey. "I'm sure everyone would pitch in. You're our folkie too." "Oh, you're a comely chavvy, but it's too much to ask. I'm an old woman. I'll be fine. They'll find me somewhere." "But we have to help. You love living on the site," encouraged Janey. "Now, Janey," insisted Mrs. Tolan, "you must promise on your honour that you won't spend your mum's hard-earned money on my old caravan." Janey couldn't stop thinking about Mrs. Tolan, but the school visit to the can recycling plant distracted her. She couldn't believe the size of the machines. "This is where the bales come in from the materials recycling facility," explained their guide. "They go up this conveyor belt to be shredded, and then next door where they're melted and cast into huge iron ingots." "How many cans does it take to make an ingot?" asked Janey. "It takes 1.5 million cans to make an ingot 10 metres long," replied an engineer. The whole class looked shocked. None of them could imagine that many cans. In the next plant, the class watched the ingots being rolled into sheets, passing through the rolling mill again and again until they were really thin. The sheets are rolled into coils and sent to factories where they are made into new products. In the visitors' room, the children watched a video of what happens in a can factory, and they watched the aluminium sheets being stamped out and stretched into cup shapes. Janey thought how similar the shape was to an old Vardo. When the engineer mentioned that the sheets were also used to make rockets, an idea popped into her head. "That's it!" she almost yelled as she did a quick sketch. Janey rushed home after school, bursting with excitement. "I've got it!" she shouted, charging through the door. "We can restore Mrs. Tolan's caravan with recycled aluminium sheets." "Great idea," said Mum, "but you promised Mrs. Tolan we wouldn't spend any money on her caravan." "We won't have to," explained Janey. "We can collect cans to raise money." "You've got the rag and bone trade in your blood," smiled Grandad. The next day, Janey shared her plans with her class. "My husband Danny is a welder. I'm sure he'll help," said Mr. Green. "My dad's an electrician," added Navdeep. More and more of Janey's classmates offered their support. "This is great," said Janey. "Mrs. Tolan can't complain if people are giving their time rather than their money." Together they drew up a list of all of the equipment and expertise they would need. "We'll still need to collect a huge stack of cans, though." Janey started to feel a little overwhelmed by the size of the project. Maybe the recycling plant can help, suggested Amani. The manager of the rolling mill offered to supply 2/3 of the sheets, but they still needed to collect a lot of cans to cover the rest. Janey needed to get as many people on board as possible. She made posters and stuck them up all over town. She spoke in an assembly to explain there would be separate bins at school to collect the cans. She even got her mum's permission to make a video to put online. Soon after that, the local paper got in touch and word spread even further. It wasn't long until they had enough cans and plenty of offers to help. A couple of weeks later, a truck drove onto the site with the precious aluminium sheets. Janey's team of helpers got to work immediately. The caravan had already been gutted. Now it was time to rebuild it. Janey felt a bit daunted being in charge of all the helpers, but she summoned up all her courage. Team 1, can you make repairs to the frame? Team 2, can you start on the wallboards? Meanwhile, Mrs. Tolan had moved into a care home to have physiotherapy and fully recover. When Janey and Grandad visited, she seemed resigned to living in a house. I'm sure they'll find me somewhere nearby. I'll ask when the social worker comes to assess my needs this afternoon. This gave Janey an idea. After saying goodbye, Janey and Grandad waited in the car park. They asked everyone arriving if they were the social worker. When she finally found the right person, she explained the plan. Well, it's unusual, he said. But if the new caravan meets all the requirements, I don't see why not. It would have to be checked, but I can do that. Please don't tell Mrs. Tolan, begged Janey. We really want it to be a surprise. Once the frame was repaired, Navdeep's dad got to work on the electrics. Solar panels were also being fitted to save energy. Mum's friend Callie was making the kitchen from recycled wood. When the social worker turned up for the inspection, he had some reservations. This looks great, but you'll need a ramp. The council may be able to fund one, but it's not guaranteed, he added, and it could take a while. Janey was trying to figure out what to do when Danny arrived carrying an aluminium ramp. I thought you might need this, he said. Your granddad is going to help me fit it. Jamie was lost for words. A week later, the caravan was finally finished. It's cushy, said Grandad as he opened and closed every door and cupboard. Do you think Mrs. Tolan will like it? Janey asked. Like it? She's going to love it. I wish your dad was here to see it. Just then, they heard her mum's van pull up and Janey rushed outside. Janey, Mrs. Tolan called. Then she stopped in her tracks. Whose trailer is that? Have you replaced me already? It's yours, Janey smiled. And we didn't spend a bar. Everyone helped, even the recycling plant. It's made from recycled cans. I can't believe it, Mrs. Tolan said, ready to give Janey a big hug. A can caravan? The world's first, Janey grinned. Interesting facts about aluminium recycling. Aluminium can be recycled unlimited times. Recycling aluminium uses 95% less energy than producing aluminium from raw materials. If an aluminium can goes to landfill, it will stay there for 500 years before it breaks down. It takes the same amount of energy to make one new aluminium can as it does to recycle 20. Each can you place in a recycling bin can be back on the shelf within 60 days. In the 19th century, aluminium was more valuable than silver and gold. Aluminium recycling. Number 1, collection bin. Number 2, truck collection. Number 3, sorting steel from aluminium. Number 4, crushing into bales. Number 5, shredding. Number 6, removing any traces of steel. Number 7, decoating, the removal of paints and inks. Number 8, melting into liquid aluminium. Number 9, casting into ingots. Number 10, flattening ingots into sheets. Number 11, winding into rolls. Number 12, forming new cans. And number 13, finished drink cans. I hope you enjoyed the story.